The history of money. In this lecture, we'll look into the evolution of money from barter trade all the way to our modern digital transfers. Let's start from the barter trade era. For those of us who've studied evolution, particularly the evolution of trade or economic history, we learned that the foundation of modern man, Homo sapiens, was based on exchange of goods and services, hence the term Homo economicus. Trade was key to the survival of man as it allowed for specialization. Specialization meant that people could focus on their best skills. A farmer would focus on farming, builders would only build, so on and so forth. This made man more efficient. This increased efficiency led to an economic surplus since production across different industries increased. And that is how man has survived and how the population ended up growing to the number we see today. In a world where man had specialized in his best skills, it meant that people had to trade to get all their needs. A house builder, for instance, could trade a house for food, as he needed food for survival. Trade became fundamental for the existence of Homo sapiens. Let's call them Homo economicus in this case. To effect this exchange of goods or value, barter trade was employed. This was the inaugural medium of value exchange. Unfortunately, the barter trade system had its own challenges and limitations. First, divisibility. Some goods were just not divisible. Imagine you had a cow and I had an apple. Of course, the cow is way more valuable than my single apple. How hard is it to get 0.001 of a cow so that one can trade for an apple? The second challenge was the challenge of storing value. Perishable goods were part of trade, but they ran the risk of going bad and losing their value. You could be rich with 3 sacks of apples today, and you could trade them for anything. Next week, unfortunately, they all go bad, and you're back to being poor. Hence, our next ancient form of money, commodity money. To solve for the issue of divisibility and value storage in ancient societies, these societies came up with non-perishable commodities that were highly divisible that could be used as money. These ranged from cowrie shells, salt, rice stones, if you've heard about them, they were in the island of Yap, Katanga crosses in Congo, knives, and numerous other commodities. One outstanding example of commodity money in the past was rice stones in the island of Yap. In fact, despite this being an ancient form of money, we can draw many parallels between the mode of money transfer in the island of Yap and modern ways of transferring value. In Yap, huge stones were used as currency. These stones were huge that stealing them was almost impossible. Just take a look at the image on the right. While the stones were the currency, people could exchange these stones without the stones moving. Only ownership would change. The Society of Yap kept written records of ownership, and whenever there was any transaction, the records would just be updated to show the exchange of a rice stone. This is not different from how modern banking works, just that Yap had stones as the representation of currency rather than paper currency. However, the written records are not any different from the ledgers we have in banks today. One interesting scenario: once a rice stone sank deep into the ocean and couldn't be retrieved, but the ownership of the stone would still change and was still used as a medium of exchange. This shows that the value of monetary exchange was not really on the stones, but rather on the ledger. If you could exchange value without seeing or touching the stone, it means that so long as you have a trustable community ledger, that people can always exchange value. So long as you have a trustable community ledger, people can always exchange value. This is one of the inspirations of digital money, Bitcoin, where a blockchain ledger simply records is what makes Bitcoin a reliable medium of exchange. Getting back to evolution of money. After commodity money, societies adopted precious metals as currency. Precious metals were durable, very durable, and many societies in the past accepted different precious metals as mediums of exchange or media of exchange. Hence, it was fairly easy to use precious metals for trade. Different metals had different intrinsic values based on their importance and scarcity. Example, copper, relatively available, had low value, while gold, highly scarce, had higher value. Metals were also very divisible, just like some of commodity money examples we had seen. The biggest value of precious metals was fungibility. Not that it is the adoption of precious metals as currency that paved way for the adoption of the gold standard. Once again, the biggest value of precious metals was fungibility. So what exactly is fungibility, now that I've stated a new term? Fungibility is the ability of a commodity to be mutually interchangeable for another commodity of equal value. That doesn't make sense, but let me give you an example to make this clear. 1 kg of gold is mutually interchangeable for another kg of gold, regardless of where the gold is from. So long as it is gold, the intrinsic value of the kilogram remains the same. This is different, however, in things like land. An acre of land in the suburbs of New York will have a very different value from the same acre of land but inside New York City itself. Example, around the Times Square. Yes, land is highly divisible but is not really fungible. However, gold and other precious metals are fungible. Gold was one of the widely accepted precious metals and highly valued in trade in ancient societies. However, gold was more than just an ancient form of monetary exchange, as it was so fundamental for value exchange in the modern world. This brings me to the gold standard and how the world achieved modernity from ancient money. Even past the precious metals era, gold still stuck with many societies and gold was used as a store of value. So why exactly was gold an efficient medium of value exchange even in modern societies? Here are some of the main reasons. 1. Gold was durable. Like other precious metals, gold could store value for years, even centuries. 2. Gold was highly scarce. This meant that the intrinsic value of gold was preserved as it was not easily acquired. Think about it. If we had metals that could be acquired easily, then money would have no stable value since supply would not be limited. 3. Like other metals, gold was fungible. We've already learnt about fungibility. Gold was a mutually interchangeable store of value. 4. And lastly, gold was already widely accepted and valued by many societies. Therefore, having it as a standard of money was no big deal or ask for anyone. The world then evolved to paper money. Instead of transferring gold, people would transfer pieces of paper that were transferable for gold, or rather exchangeable for gold if one went to the bank. Look at the note on the bottom left of your screen. That is a $50 in gold coin note. If anyone took the note back to a bank, it was transferable for a gold coin. We can see that gold was still the medium of exchange in the gold standard era, but paper contracts pledging gold if one went to the bank were physically exchanged instead. Essentially, paper money was just a form of convenience so that you don't have to carry around a box of gold for your day-to-day trade. However, the gold era officially ended in 1971, giving rise to fiat currencies, or non-backed currencies. The notes you see today are not pegged to any physical standard like gold. Instead, the value of fiat currencies lies on the trust of central banks. This is the trust that these banks will not print extra money for their own reasons. Milton Friedman, a renowned economist, phrases this even better. The pieces of green paper have value because everybody thinks they have value. Yes, fiat currencies have value because of societal consensus. It is not just the trust of central banking that counts, but rather the fact that both me and you have agreed to value the green papers and use it as a mode of exchange. Today, we don't only talk about paper money. Our world is very digitized, and global digitization has come with the digitization of money as well. The most significant stride in monetary value transfer in the internet age has been the transition to a cashless economy. Today, around 92% of global cash is digital. Yes, we are still in the paper currency era, but over 90% of global cash is not on paper. So what accounts for this high percentage of electronic money? 1. Banks store our money in electronic ledgers. Banks do not necessarily keep paper money. Of course, that's what you get when you go to an ATM. But most of the cash in a bank is just a record on a computer. 2. Plastic payments like debit cards and credit cards are extremely common today. It is very hard to find businesses that do not offer plastic payment methods. In fact, it is easier getting or finding businesses that do not accept physical cash than it is to find businesses that do not accept MasterCard, debit, or Visa card in many countries. 3. Mobile wallets and online payments are becoming the trend. We all know PayPal, Venmo in the US, M-Pesa in Kenya, Swish in Sweden, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, and the tons of fintech payment solutions in the market today. Unfortunately, as much as we've gone through a lengthy evolution of money all the way to digital money, there's still some limitations worth addressing. 1. Digital payments are still pegged to bank accounts, making digital money less useful in countries with unbanked populations, mostly in emerging economies. 2. The cost of digital payments is extremely high. Transactional charges tend to be high, and the magnitude is felt even more during micropayments, where a fixed transactional cost is still incurred. Now, most of us hardly feel the transactional charges, but try establishing how much you've spent in transactional fees over the past 10 years, and you'll see exactly how much digital payments cost you. Moreover, try to ask businesses accepting digital payments how much they have to cash out as a percentage of fixed cost to digital payments. It's always a high transactional price. Note that the high transactional costs are due to the cost of intermediation. No third party would facilitate a transaction without a commission. It is this intermediation that will be key to understanding the inspiration behind Bitcoin in the next module. We can summarize this entire lecture into the following 6 points. 1. Barter trade era was inspired by the desire to trade, hence the term Homo economicus. The visibility and storage of value were the biggest challenges to barter trade. However, this began the evolution of money in our society. 2. Ancient forms of money like cowrie shells and rice stones were targeted to creating a store of value. 3. Precious metals then solved the issue of fungibility while storing value. 4. Gold became a standard of modern currency because of the following properties: scarcity, fungibility, durability, and acceptability. Paper money replaced gold since it was convenient. However, paper money was initially backed by gold. Paper money was also referred to as representative money. And lastly, in the post-internet age, Physical money is gradually being digitized. Banks store more money electronically. Credit and debit cards are common, and mobile wallets as well as internet payments like PayPal have revolutionized payments and how we interact online.